All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is G. I'm the Director of Impact for MOE United Way. I'm super happy to have all of you joining today for this Federal Grants 101 training. We're really happy to be hosting all of these sessions to support our community in learning having a deeper understanding about our grants process, in particular to bring federal grants dollars into our community after the wildfires. Today, we're very lucky to be joined by the Administration for Children and Families, and I have about 5 people that I have the pleasure of introducing. And then I will pass it on to them to be able to share out all of their great mana'o. First off, we have Melissa Adams. She's the Grants Management Specialist. Sherry Harmon, as well as Bridget Shea Westfall, who's the Supervisory Grants Management Officer. And then Augusto, who's the Customer Experience Program Manager, and Jessica, who's the Pathways Intern. So I will pass it on to them into their very capable hands, and I'm really happy that you all will be joining us. We will also be making sure to have this recording available on our MOE United Way website to make it so that it's accessible for you and your team members in the future. And then feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. I'll put my email in the chat. Thank you all and have a really great training. Aloha.
Aloha, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Augusto Kangawala, and as G mentioned, I'm the Customer Experience Program Manager for the Administration of Children and Families based out of Washington, D.C. And I'm here with my colleagues, and we were excited to be joining you today for this presentation. I know that we're expecting a few more guests. So if you are okay with this, we have a carefully planned session, so we promise you that you will be out of here before the 2-hour limit, but we want to make sure that as many folks as we can reach our part of the session before we get started with the content. So just so we wait for a few more folks to trickle in, we want to start with a quick dynamic and sort of like an icebreaker activity. And I hope that you can join us, and this is also going to help us because we're going to try to make this session as interactive as possible. So we will have some mural activities. So in case you're not familiar with mural, you will get an opportunity to try it if maybe for the first time. So when the session starts and we have to use it, you'll be familiar and you'll be able to participate more actively. So we're going to take this opportunity now to try mural or play a little bit with it while we wait for a few more minutes. So let me start sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. Can someone please confirm that you can see my mural board? Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So what we are going to do here today, Mural is an application that allows people to participate remotely and teams to collaborate. So it's like imagine it's a gigantic whiteboard, as if we were all in the same room and we had a beautiful, huge, interactive whiteboard that we could all use. This is the same idea. So some of you might be familiar with it, some of you may not, but we're just gonna use a little bit of we call it Mural 101. So basically we're gonna go over a little bit of the functions. So I'm gonna place, I think Jessica has, oh yeah, thank you. We have placed the link in the chat so you all can access that and see. So let me know if anyone has issues accessing Mural or cannot join for any technical reasons, let us know. We're gonna help you. But other than that, everybody should be able to start joining. So I see that there's some moving folks around here. So glad to see that everybody is getting in. Yeah. So for those folks that are new to Mural, this tool has a few, it's very simple, very easy to use as you will see in a second. but basically has a few components. In your screen, you see right here on the left side, you have the toolbar with some sticky notes, a text box option, and a pencil tool. Those are the main functions. You can get really fancy and use this thing for many purposes, but those are the basics. So you should just kind of, at the beginning, especially stick to those. You have the navigation tools here at the bottom of the screen that allows you to move around, kind of like move it with your hands, so to speak. And then at the top, you have some comments, find other tools, and your profile in case you have one, if you're not joining as a guest. So those are the basic functionality. So for example, right now I'm using a pointer. So mine kind of moves things around. These also, when I use the hand mode, it allows me to move, kind of navigate, move around. So very simple. Take a second to just play with this. And just use it. One thing that I'm going to ask everybody is that if you double click with your mouse, with your left button, it would also give you a sticky note automatically, and you're able to start typing in it immediately. You can also just delete it after you use it if you want. So if you don't mind, just put a sticky note, change the color, and just put maybe your name, like, or what your organization you're representing, something like that. That's what you're gonna do. Oh, actually, yeah, once you do your first sticky somewhere else in the screen, you can come here and put we just want to know, what is your experience with applying for federal grants? So tell us about applying for federal grants, what type of experience. There's no right or wrong answer, just tell us what is your experience. So you can say, I'm very experienced, I've applied in the past, it's been a while, whatever your answer want to be, just put it in here. And we'll just take a couple minutes to do this, and then we'll go into the presentation so we don't delay. Nice. Oh, wow. Oh, nice. This is awesome. Oh, I love to see all the action, the activity. Okay. You can make this thing smaller if you want, and you can just grab the corner and just shrink it. Or you can just leave it as big as you want, or put it anywhere. Ooh, nice. All right. This is great. If you can place it within this area, if you see it, this is the first icebreaker. To just kind of keep it in this square, this white square. If you can see it, let's keep it in this area. We're gonna look at all those answers later, or what the presentation is going. But yeah, so as you can see, Mural is very simple, and we're gonna be using it a couple more times throughout the presentation, just so we can get some of your feedback, or get some of your you get to participate in the presentation. All right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, you can continue to stay in Mural if you want, but I'm gonna start now sharing my my presentation with you all. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, and then I'm gonna reshare. Oh, I love to see the mural. Yeah, it's fun. Let me get this thing started. And can you see the presentation? Yes, thank you, Jessica. All right. So, aloha, welcome to the Administration for Children and Families Grants 101. My name is Augusto Kangawala, as I mentioned earlier. And if you're just joining us, we are about to get started, so you haven't missed anything. So welcome. Today's webinar is geared towards helping nonprofits in the state of Hawaii and Native Hawaiian organizations seek federal assistance opportunities through grants and cooperative agreements. Grants are now one way the federal government funds your ideas and projects, providing services to individuals, families, and communities. Grants can even stimulate the economy through job creation or economic and social support structures, such as childcare, early education programs, tax credits, or public assistance. Grants support programs in your community, innovative ways of social service delivery, design, research, and critical recovery efforts in times of natural disasters. Our goal today is to create a partnership so that nonprofits and other eligible entities in Hawaii are aware of funding opportunities available to them and participate in the competitive peer review process, making our grant making more fair, equitable, and highlighting the rich diversity of our great country. Competition drives better ways of delivering programs and services to those who need them most, and leverages creativity and innovation to generate impact in communities. Relationship building is a critical piece of grant making, so let's get to know one another today by starting off with an activity, which we already did. But we would like to love to travel to Hawaii, or funds didn't allow for us to make a visit. So let's create some shared connections with in this virtual environment. So we hope that you enjoyed this presentation. As I mentioned, without further ado, we're gonna get started with some content, and I'm gonna play a video of our director. So, we did the mirror activity. Sorry about that. Janice is the director, and she has a video message for everyone. And I think she's also on the line. So, if you see her, say hi.
Hello. My name is Janice Davis Caldwell, and I'm the Director of the Office of Grants Management within the Administration for Children and Families. The Office of Grants Management is responsible for the awarding and administration of over $70 billion in grant funds that go to support and assist children and families throughout the country. I would like to welcome you to the ACF Grants 101 training. We are excited about this training because it goes to support OGM's vision of maximizing ACF's investment in children and families. I trust that you will find this training valuable and informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. And
hello.
And now, let me share with you. Let me give you first some ground rules. Today, 3 ACF experts will guide us. As G mentioned, we have 3 experts in the room with us today who will be taking us through the presentation. They will guide us through today's content. So the first one will be Bridget Shea Westfall. She will cover sections 1 and 3 that you can see on your screen. Melissa Adams will cover sections 3 and 5, and Sherry Harmon will cover section 4. After each section, we will have time for questions and answers, or items to be placed in the parking lot to get you answers that you're looking for. We understand that the need for a break. So at midpoint in the presentation, we will have a break to grab a drink, run for a bio break, or stretch. If at any time during the presentation you have a question, just drop it in the chat because we're constantly monitoring. We will make sure to answer it before or get back to you if further research is required. So if during the presentation you have a question, just drop it in the chat or save it until the Q&A section at the end of the Q&A time at the end of each section. If any questions require additional research, as I mentioned, we'll make sure to take your information and get back to you with the answer. In addition, at the end of this presentation, we'll provide you with a resource with all these Q&As. With all these Q&As are compiled, when more information is available. So everything that we're sharing with you, plus more that comes up during the presentation, will be shared with you on our ACF portal. So you'll be able to access it right after this. So it will distribute it to everyone. So just for section 1, it's called Why Apply for Grants with the Administration of Children and Families. Section 2 is titled How to Find the Right Funding Opportunity. Section 3 is How to Apply for an ACF Grant. Section 4, What to Expect with an Award. And Section 5, Who to Contact at ACF and Where to Find Additional Resources. So we hope you find this all informative. Now let's get started with section 1. Oh, a survey. Yes. So right before we get started with the content, we just want to know a little bit more about your level of understanding of grants. And so we have a 2-question survey that, if you don't mind going, there's a link in the chat right now that you can click on and just take the survey. It's literally 2 questions. And we ask that you help us because this will indicate how effective this training was and how much how much your knowledge of grants, especially ACF grants, enhance or grew after the presentation. So if you can just take a moment to take this survey, we would appreciate it. And then we'll get started with section 1. So I want to put a timer for myself for about 2 minutes. And after that, we'll reconvene and we'll start the presentation with section 1. You can take this, if this is easier, you can also take, if you have a mobile device at hand, you can take it, you just snap it from your phone, or you can take it with a desktop. So that survey is mobile friendly. So either way it works. You can take it from anywhere, like desktop or mobile device. Has everyone been able to access the presentation? I mean, the survey? And if you have issues with your with access, let me know. Also, I'm gonna, in a few seconds, I'm gonna ask everyone if anyone still needs more time, or we can get started. So we have about 30 seconds left. And I wanted to have some music playing in the background, but now I think when I'm in PowerPoint, I can't. So sorry for the awkward silence. Thank you, Spirit Horse Range. Okay. Does anyone need more time, or are we good to start? If you need more time, just react or put it in the chat and we'll wait. But if you're good and we can get started, then I'll just continue. Is everyone okay? I cannot see everybody, so I can see. Are we good, Jessica? Anything in the chat? Awesome. All right, let's continue. We're gonna get started with section 1, and I'm gonna welcome Bridget, who's gonna get us started. Bridget, please.
Thank you, Augusto. Good afternoon or good morning to everyone. Aloha. I'm so happy to be here today. So we're going to get started with section 1. You might be asking yourself, why should I apply for a grant with the Administration for Children and Families? Contrary to those late night infomercials that you might see on TV, the federal government doesn't just hand out free money to start or fund a grant program. Don't we wish they did? However, grants are one way you can fund a project for your organization or gain additional services for your community. It's important to remember that grants are competitive and they take a long time to prepare and submit. But that shouldn't dissuade you from applying. Sometimes only a few applicants apply to an announcement because of misinformation that circulates. That competitive or discretionary grants are already designated for a specific organization. Not true. That there's no money out there for the project that you wish to fund. Again, a myth. That it's too competitive. These myths we hope to break down so that you and your organization will take advantage of these competitive funding opportunities that are available to you. Well, there's a native Hawaiian proverb that roughly translated in English to recognize others, be recognized, help others, be helped. Such is a family relationship. The Hawaiian word ahana translates to family and conveys the idea that family means no one is left behind or forgotten. It's more than just blood relatives and can also refer to anyone in the community who's considered families. Native Hawaiians take care of each other and share everything, creating a personal connection among all community members. This Native Hawaiian proverb aligns nicely with ACF's vision to promote the economic and social well-being of children, youth, families, and communities, to be resilient, economically secure, and healthy. How does this relate to what your organization should apply for federal grants with the Administration for Children and Families? If you look here, we have our vision and mission. We are a family. ACF is focused on helping others and helping build the capacity of nonprofits, states, tribes, universities, and colleges, and other eligible entities. So it fits nicely with that Native Hawaiian proverb. Just like that Native Hawaiian proverb, ACF is a family. So sometimes there are one of the largest grant-making organizations in the federal government, and there are opportunities for you and your community to partner with us as collaborators through this competitive grant review process and other funds available to serve the state of Hawaii and Native Hawaiians. I'm going to go through the ACF organizational structure just for your background. So our staff and all of our colleagues, we serve at various unique roles. At a high level, most employees perform one or several of these functions. We serve grantees or grant recipients or beneficiaries, meaning the people that you serve as grant recipients. And we do this through grants management primarily. We serve other Administration for Children and Families employees, for example, through our human resources support. And we provide policy leadership through research. If you see here, you can see on the right-hand side, a brief overview of our organizational structure. In the next slide, you'll see our budget. We manage approximately $70 billion in federal human service programs each year. It makes our agency the second largest operating division at Health and Human Services. This chart shows that the grant programs we fund, and they mainly are primarily social support programs, such as TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, or early childhood programs such as Child Care and Head Start. And you'll also see that one of the second largest programs we have is with the Unaccompanied Children program. So it's in the Office of Refugee Resettlement. That's been growing significantly in the last few years due to the humanitarian crisis at the border. So you should apply for a grant with our agency so you can provide significant funding to your community just with one grant. There isn't a limit to how many grants you can apply. Sometimes other funders will see your good work that you're doing, and they might give you more funding with a family foundation grant or other opportunities. It's also a great way to raise your visibility for your organization and programming. New donors might see the work you're doing or that you were awarded an Administration for Children and Families grant and give a small donation. It's also a great way to generate volunteers and in-kind donations, such as critical supplies your community may need. And we went over those myths. Don't let those dissuade you from applying. There's a lot of opportunities for you and the organizations and communities that you serve. This next slide is a graphic representation of our funding priorities right now that we're looking at. We fund, like I said, local, state, tribal, and territory organizations to provide programs related to children, youth, and families. And our funding priorities right now, there's a huge emphasis in equity in action, meaning equity in grants and grant making to build strong communities, keeping families together and out of the child welfare system, preventing homelessness, economic stability for families, supporting tribes. There's also supporting Indigenous people in general, with Native Alaskan communities, Native Hawaiian communities, and other Indigenous populations in urban areas. Early care and education, such as home visiting, preschool readiness, childcare, and Head Start. Youth support programs for positive youth development programs, healthy relationships, sexual health and education, teen pregnancy prevention, transitional living programs for youth aging out of foster care, and maternal and child group homes. A big emphasis after the pandemic is mental health services, and also because of this economy, hunger, food, and nutrition programs. The next slide, we're going to talk about our mission and purpose. Now that we've gone over ACF's funding priorities, it's time to introduce you to our office, the Office of Grants Management. Me, Sherry, and Melissa, we work in the Office of Grants Management. We're part of the office administration here at ACF, where we work with Augusto and Jessica and Melissa. So our grants office works with our counterparts in the program offices on the full life cycle of the grant, from the pre-award process to awarding the grant, post-award changes to closeout. We work collaboratively and focus on fiscal administrative requirements of the grant. we're responsible for different types of financial assistance or grants and cooperative agreements. And they're called discretionary or competitive grants and mandatory or formula and block grants. We also have some congressionally appropriated grants, sometimes called earmarks, and even unsolicited proposals that people submit to our agency and that we fund. These are projects that are congressionally directed rather than go through the competitive or peer-reviewed merit-based review. So today's presentation will primarily focus on the competitive or peer-reviewed grant process. You might be asking yourself, what's it like to work with ACF? Our federal grants office typically works with recipients in several key ways. We use the word recipient or grantee simultaneously, so interchangeably. So the first thing is the application process. So the grants office provides guidance and support to potential applicants like we're doing today during the grant review process. Sometimes we have pre-applicant webinars. We also include information about funding opportunities that exist for you and your community and the eligible entities that you serve. So you might look at assisting us with eligibility criteria, available grants to you, or any technical aspects of the application process. Once grants are awarded, we focus on the award notification. So that is when we notify successful applicants that you received an award. Usually your congressional office notifies you, and we provide you with detailed information regarding the terms and conditions, what you have to do to have that award, and what it's going to look like to work with us as an agency. So after that, we go into the compliance and regulations. We ensure that recipients understand and comply with all federal regulations, policies, and legislative authority that governs your grant programs. That includes financial management rules, procurement standards for contracts, and reporting requirements. Depending on your grant that you have with the agency, you might have a complex grant that requires additional assistance. We might offer technical assistance to you by providing training sessions or workshops or webinars like we are today on topics such as grants management, reporting, compliance, and performance measurement for the programmatic aspects of your grant. It might sound scary, but we are collaborative partners, and we do focus on monitoring and oversight. But like I said, we have a peer-to-peer relationship with our grantees, and we make sure that we're using the grant funds appropriately and that the projects are progressing as planned. So it might be that you need some extra help at certain times to make sure that those projects are getting off the ground and that the grant funds are being spent appropriately. If there's any issues or challenges that arise during the grant review, during the grant period, you might be working on problem resolution with the grants office. And like I said, this is a collaborative, iterative process where we might be providing help on how to interpret policy or offering recommendations for addressing unforeseen circumstances. For example, like when we had the pandemic or if there's a natural disaster. The last two things are really important. We evaluate and impact the assessment of the grant through your reports and a program evaluation at the end of your project. And this helps us decide if that project was effective to continue funding it and inform future funding decisions to grant recipients. So we make sure that we're proper stewards of federal funds. And then lastly, we disseminate the information from the grant project through communication and outreach to your community. We want you to know that we're the liaison between the federal agency and grant recipients, and we facilitate a partnership and let you know about other opportunities that may exist and available grants and transparency in the grant making process. So, like I previously mentioned, the grants office we call OGM, because we love an acronym right here at the Administration for Children and Families. We collaboratively manage all elements of the grant award, from award, financial management, and post-award requirements to the closing out of the grant. We're responsible for risk management, compliance, and customer service, which we sometimes refer to as technical assistance with grant recipients, who we also call grantees. This might be resolving any audit findings, providing risk management through the review of financial reports, providing customer service or technical assistance on financial matters, such as payroll, accounting, internal controls, audits, and allowable expenses charged to the grants. So next, we're going to go into this mural activity. If you have any while we're working on the mural activity, if anyone has any questions about the session, you can feel free to come off mute, raise your hand and ask questions, or post your question in the chat. I know it's a lot of content, and we'll turn it over for the mural activity with this QR code.
Thank you, Bridget. So now we are gonna go into our first mural activity. So drop a stick with your name, organization, and what you're trying to fund. Here's a cute example. You can follow, but you would like to see if you can just put a sticky, change the color so they don't all look the same, and just with your name, your organization's name, and what you're trying to fund. We're gonna give you 2 minutes to do this, and then we're gonna get back to the presentation with Bridget.
Augusto, we can't see the mural itself. We're on the presentation screen.
Oh, it's still sharing the PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
I think you want me to stop sharing and then reshare and select this. All right, here we go. Are we good now? Am I sharing my browser now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I see some responses coming in. Keep it in this section because we have one more activity later. So if you can keep it in this section 1, that would be great. So we know what answer you're trying to, what you're answering. Let me see if I can play my music. Okay, we have 30 more seconds to finish this activity, and then we'll get started with the Q&A for section 1. Oh no. Okay. We thank you for those that are participating and that you put a sticky. I love this white, super clean. with the black frame. Love it. Oh, I love that everybody changed colors, so we have like. Oh, nice. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we're gonna continue now with the presentation. Oh, thank you, Licia. Okay, yeah, this works too. That's perfect. We're gonna capture the chat works fine too. All right. So we're gonna pause the music for a second, and we're gonna get back to the presentation. And now it's time for Q&A. So we're gonna have Bridget, answer any questions you may have about section 1, the content that we just talked about. so primarily ACF and grants. So anything that Bridget just covered, feel free to just come off mute, ask the question, put it in the chat, even drop it on Mural, whatever. Just let us know, and we're happy to answer it. So we have a few minutes to do that. So yeah, let's. Anyone has a question, please come off mute.
Hi, my name is Paige. I'm from the Spirit Horse Ranch, and I'm really happy to be here. We started a process with a federal grant, and it's been a really nice experience. Everyone is so helpful in ACF. It's been just a pleasure. I did have assistance, a grant writer help with that because we're a small organization with a big job, and we're working most of the time in session for mental health. But everybody that I've talked to has been extremely helpful from the very beginning. And I like the process. We're in the middle of it. Funding is at the end of August. So we're going through the whole process. But to everybody else out there, I just wanted to say that ACF has been extremely supportive and very helpful in navigating and helping us navigate. My question is, and why I'm here today is I want more information. I would like to know, the earmark is set. It's a wonderful gift for our youth programs, and we're really excited. Is that where else can we apply? We were very fortunate to get an earmark, but as far as grants, are you going to go into detail for section or individually help us understand? We do foster care, we do youth in crisis, that kind of thing. Is there going to be an explanation to us, and how does all of that fit into Mural? Hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Paige. First of all, thank you for sharing your experience with the grant application process, and best of luck to you and your organization. And also, we're not going to talk about specific notice of funding opportunities, but we will talk about how to find notice of funding opportunities on grants.gov and with the Administration for Children and Families forecast. One of the things that we wanted to do after this is maybe show potentially what announcements we had this year that would have been to interest to people. So if you want to share in the chat what types of opportunities, like you said, about foster care or other youth development programs, if other people want to share in the chat, we can let you know what program offices work with those. Because we have different Administration for Children and Families program offices, like, for example, the Administration for Children, Youth and Families Children's Bureau that works on foster care. So you we will be telling you more in generic terms of how to use the grants.gov search feature to search for the Administration for Children and Families opportunities that are available. I did want to just talk briefly about earmarks. Earmarks are congressionally mandated from your congressperson or senator. So those are outside of the peer review competitive process. So we're going to be talking about funding opportunities that are in the competitive process. If you're interested in earmarks, you would want to speak with your congressional representatives about the earmark that you currently have. My colleague that works on those grants, I think that their team is working with you probably on the congressionally mandated grants. But if there's specific programs that you're interested in, put in the chat, and we can let you know what program offices after this, those types of opportunities are available. And we're going to be sharing with you how to search in grants.gov. The best way to find the opportunities. You can also subscribe based on what types of programs or funding areas that you're interested in. Great question.
All right, thank you. And we're gonna have more time for questions, so we're just gonna keep the presentation going. I wanna be respectful of everyone's time. So we committed to 2 hours. I wanna try to stick to that as best as we can. So I think, Bridget, that was the end of section 1, correct? And now we're gonna go into section 2, which is also yours. So
Yes.
I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna start sharing again. And section 1, section 2.
Okay, so section 2 is about how to find the right funding opportunity. And Paige, your question, it is a great question to start off this section. So at this point, you're asking yourself, how do I find the right opportunity for me in my organization or for my community? Well, we've developed a one-pager that we'll share with you that goes over the basics of grants.gov. That's your source for all things funding. So Jessica is going to share a one-pager with everyone that's participating that goes over basics about how you can find the right funding opportunity for you. So grants.gov is what you'll want to bookmark. It's your source for all funding opportunities. In the past, you might have seen on our Administration for Children and Families website, we have the grants page. That's a great opportunity for you to look at things about grants, but we no longer post the notice of funding opportunities there. They're all on grants.gov. So the best way that you can search is to, in the search bar on grants.gov, put in quotation marks, ACF for Administration for Children and Families, or other keywords, for example, foster care, language, native language, and then you would put that in the search engine and it will show you any funding opportunities that your organization might be eligible. I would search for ACF because it will show you all of the opportunities that are currently open, including standing announcements. Standing announcements are announcements that are each year. Typically, most of our announcements are not standing announcements, but there are some for dissertation grants, which fund Masters of Social Work and PhD students, and for some other programs. But we're going to talk about how to find the right funding opportunity. So first, we're going to talk about the types of grants. And Paige, you did a great job with this too. I'm talking about the earmark that your organization received. Congratulations on that. So earmarks, you would want to talk to your congressional office about that. For a while, the Administration for Children and Families didn't have earmarks because they're based on the political administration. And also they're congressionally appropriated, so it's based on Congress. So you would talk to your congressperson or senator. So we're going to talk about the two types of grants besides earmarks or congressionally appropriated funds. They're called discretionary or competitive peer-reviewed grants, which are awarded on a merit-based system, and non-discretionary grants, which are block or formula grants. Those are based on entitlements that are paid to states, territories, or tribes. So discretionary grants are awarded competitively, like Paige was talking about. They're based on merit. Subject matter experts who work in the field, they review these, and the panels are managed by federal staff who work with us, our colleagues in the program offices. So the block grants, they're distributed based on the authorizing legislation, and they're usually awarded to states or local agencies. And like we're talking about, the discretionary or competitive grants often have more specific rules about how the grant program can be implemented, while block or formula grants generally allow for more autonomy and flexibility. And congressionally mandated programs, they're not specific to anything. It's basically where your congressperson or senator determines that they want to fund a project in their community. So we're going to go over the types of grants here. So I want to talk about which grants have the most involvement with the federal government and which have the least involvement. So on the left-hand side, you'll see cooperative agreements. Cooperative agreements are not contracts. They're competitive peer-reviewed grants, and they're the ones that have the most substantial involvement. Typically, those are large scale projects over $1 million annually. Sometimes they can be billions of dollars. And they are typically awarded maybe one or two for a funding opportunity announcement. And they're specifically to do an innovative new way of delivering social services or social service design, or maybe a better way. For example, an interstate way to connect the foster care and adoption, or background checks, or child welfare type things. Those are typically the projects that are cooperative agreements. We also have discretionary grants. Cooperative agreements are a type of discretionary grant, but discretionary grants have less involvement from the federal government. And you'll see the types that have the most involvement are under there, which are research, implementation grants, construction grants, and conferences and research. And then mandatory grant awards that are block or formula, they're more open-ended entitlement programs that are based on the authorizing legislation, and they're typically awarded to a state. There is not a lot of programmatic requirements, and there's not a lot of substantial involvement other than reporting with the federal government. So when you're looking for the notice of funding opportunity announcement, that's what we call the way that you find the funds. The notice of funding opportunity announcement, it's announces the availability of federal funds for a competitive grant program and some mandatory or block grant programs in the Administration for Children and Families. Because we're the government, we love to use a good acronym. So we sometimes use the notice of funding opportunity, or NOFO. And it's the agency's formally issued announcement on grants.gov that lets you know that there's available funds for the federal government through one of its financial assistance or grant programs. So these are always posted on grants.gov. They have what's called a forecast, which lets you know, hey, this announcement's going to be coming out. You might want to apply. And then they actually have the actual announcement, which is the application for you to apply. So you'll want to register on grants.gov if you're not already registered there, and you're going to be applying on grants.gov to be considered for funding. So just so you know, if you're in a community where you have connectivity issues or challenges with Wi-Fi, or there's seasonal issues that impact your ability to work on a computer or have access to high-speed internet, there are electronic exemptions. And we also do have, for example, if there's natural disasters, you can request an electronic exemption. And those are all in the notice of funding opportunity. It lets you know how to do that. So I'm going to talk to you about what you should do to get ready to apply for a grant. Okay, these are the key considerations that you're going to want to look at when you're on grants.gov. So first of all, you want to make sure that you're eligible. Do you meet all the eligibility requirements that are specified in the grant application? That includes what kind of organizational status you are, the scope of the project, and sometimes geographical considerations. So for example, with Hawaii, we have specific grants through the Child Care Development Block Fund discretionary grant program that are awarded to Native Hawaiian child care organizations specifically. Sometimes it will state that there's a specific population or state that is eligible, the only eligible entity. So you'll also want to make sure that you're ready for the grant. You want to be prepared. You want to make sure that you have the necessary infrastructure, the key personnel on the grant, that that you have you know, the capacity to carry out the proposed project or activities. And you know, this could be hard if you're trying to scale up, but please don't let that deter you from applying. The thing that I think that you should focus on most is the alignment. Your project proposal should align closely with the goals and priorities of the grant program. Sometimes people, they have an already existing grant program and they'll try to fit it into a notice of funding opportunity announcement. You'll want to make sure that you can clearly demonstrate how your project meets the objectives that are outlined in the notice of funding opportunity announcement. Another big area that is a barrier for people is developing a detailed and realistic budget. So you want to accurately reflect the costs associated with your project. You don't want to just scale up your budget or bump up everyone's salaries because you're getting federal funding and it's allowing you to have more funding. You want to follow any specific budget guidelines that's provided by the agency, and you want to make sure that it's specific to the grant program. Next, you'll want to look at the timeline. Our friend Paige, she shared with us the timeline that she had working with a grant writer and working with the agency to apply for grant funding, and just waiting in that process after the pre-award or peer review stage. So you want to understand not only the timeline for applying for the grant, but that once awarded the grant, are there specific things that you need to do? A lot of our grants are implementation grants. So they might have a year one where you have a needs assessment, or you might have a requirement to provide a social service delivery and then have another intervention to another group of people. There might be evaluation requirements or dissemination activities. So you want to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into and that you are able to meet those deliverables. The next thing you want to do is make sure you're clear, concise, and complete to all sections. We only look at what's included in your application that you submit on grants.gov. So you make sure that you are applying to the announcement and looking at specifically the evaluation criteria. We can't go outside to other websites or to your peer-reviewed journal articles or your social media channels. Reviewers, they provide valuable insights after the grant review, helping identify areas for improvement and also areas of strengths. And like one of my colleagues will talk about, we often use these as training tools and capacity building for grant applicants. The next thing you want to do is compliance. So you want to adhere to all the instructions and requirements about how to upload files, label things, and what to submit. That includes formatting, submitting the grant in grants.gov and any additional documentation that you needed, and making sure that you can clearly articulate the expected outcomes and impact of your project. We want to make sure that you can sustain this project beyond the funding and create a lasting benefit in your community, because the funding is always subject to the availability of funds, and we don't always continue funding to the same recipients. Like I said, it's a peer-reviewed, merit-based process, and it's also subject to the availability of funding from Congress. And then lastly, following up. So if you're awarded a grant, just being prepared to comply with any of the reporting requirements. So you want to make sure you're considering these factors when you're preparing your application. You can increase your chances of securing federal grant funding for your project organization by following these key considerations. So we're going to have a brief Q&A because this is a big section, and I'm sure that people have a lot of questions. And then after the Q&A, we'll take a break to stretch, get a drink, take a bio break. So if you want, you can either take yourself off mute or you can drop your questions in the chat. I see a lot of great things that people put in the chat as far as the areas that they're interested in learning more about and what programs work on those types of programmatic funding at the Administration for Children and Families. Does anyone have any questions about this section?
So I do have a question. It's me again.
Yeah, hi Paige, go ahead.
I love info. Okay, so I know with the earmark, we applied in January of 2023 and were awarded in March of 2024. So it was a whole year later. What is the process with the general, not congressional, but just grants in general for federal funding? Is it the same process? Is it a year wait?
No.
It is a very extensive review. Okay.
So how it works is in the notice of funding opportunity announcement, you'll see a date for the submission deadline. And then there's a timeline that we have internally with our colleagues in the grants office and the program office. And what they do is they have a process where there's a pre-application review, and then the peer reviewers review that. After that, they present that to the federal staff, and then the federal staff presents to their political leadership in the grants office the funding. It could be in rank order or for example, geographic considerations. Like say we don't want everyone to have a grant in Maui, so we might skip someone even if they have a high score because 3 people are in the same geographic location. And that's specified. That's very rare. We typically fund in rank order. So depending on the start date in the notice of funding opportunity announcement, it will say what date that you will be notified by. For most of our grant programs, but not all, typically the federal fiscal year for our grant programs is September 30th through September 29th. So you would know before September 30th if you are successful. If you're an unsuccessful applicant or a successful applicant, you'll receive a compilation of the reviewer comments that will be sent to whoever is designated as the program contact and the authorized official on the what's called the standard form 424A that you submitted on grants.gov. So on grants.gov, whoever is designated as the authorized official and the point of contact are the primary investigator, project director, that will go to them, and it will say the strengths and weaknesses of your application. And we provide that to all people as a capacity building. If you are a successfully awarded grant, how you're going to probably find out first is you might get a notification in grants.gov, but we have what's called a 72-hour congressional hold where we don't award the grants right away. We let the congressional offices know. And so your congressional office might contact you. If you don't hear from them, that might not mean anything. August is congressional recess, as you know. And sometimes we're making the awards to the last minute on the 29th, before the new fiscal year starts for us. We also have some grants that are not that same start date. So I have grant programs that are in March and June and July. And for Head Start, they have a balance of funds throughout the year. So it's not always that, but it's usually typically it's stated in the funding opportunity announcement when you will receive notification. We typically have on our website a press release. And on some websites, they will also have a list of all of the funding. And some offices, for example, you are interested in foster care, the Children's Bureau will have a compilation and the summaries. Not all program offices do that. So if you don't hear by October, you can let us know. Sometimes it goes to your spam because the notice of award, it looks like a spammy email. And some people's nonprofits or universities or state governments, it blocks the system. Some people email me and are like, oh, hey, like I found out I got a grant. You'll also get usually like a welcome letter from the program office. And then also it's just like this notice of award. It looks like a piece of loose leaf paper. And until you have a Grants Solutions account, we use what's called grantsolutions.gov. You might not have access to that grant, but like I said, anyone who is authorized official or the PIPD can have contacts. We can only release the notice of award to those individuals. So if you designated someone besides yourself, you would have to ask them. But yeah, so that's how you find out about the awards. So in the notice of award, it will say what date we're making the announcements, like the anticipated award date. You can always email the Office of Grants Management program contact. So that is something that you can always email. And I'm a program contact for 35 funding opportunity announcements. And someone asked in the chat, do ACF funds typically allow for hiring a program evaluator in the approved budget, or is this typically an allowable cost? So it depends on the funding opportunity announcement, but usually a program evaluator, it might specify that the program evaluator has to be a third-party program evaluator, not someone that's in-house. We have a lot of grants that are evaluative in nature. It's typically an allowable expense depending on the notice of funding opportunity and the legislative authority governing the program. We also apply the cost principles if it's reasonable, allocable, and allowable. If you have a question about if program evaluators are for a specific funding opportunity announcement, feel free to message me and I can follow up with you. But typically we do allow for program evaluation. The entire division that I work with in the grants office, almost all those grants have a program evaluation component. Typically it's a third-party evaluator, but we also have people doing secondary analysis of research and childcare, Head Start, and behavioral intervention scholars.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank
If you have any additional questions, just put them in the chat. Lance will get back to you. But we're now gonna take a 10-minute break just so we can stretch. And we'll be back for sections 3, 4, and 5. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in a bit.
Nakakaikan na o hindi na gonna blow, so I'm gonna go down on the road again. Starting where the mountains left me, I end up where I began. Where I will go, the wind only knows. Good times around the bend. Get in my car, going too far, never coming back again. Tired and worn, I woke up this morning, found that I was confused. Spun right around and found I had lost the things that I couldn't lose. The beaches they sail to build their hotels, my fathers and I once knew. The birds all along, the sunlight at dawn, singing Waimanalo Blue. Down on the road with mountains so old, far on the countryside. The birds on the wings forgetting their while, so I'm headed for the windward side. In all of your dreams, sometimes it just seems that I'm just along for the ride. Some they will cry because they have pride, but someone who's loved here died. Beaches they sail to build their hotels, my fathers and I once knew. The birds all along, the sunlight at dawn, singing Waimanalo Blue. 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 Singing Waimanalo Blue.
So what does your child need to do this summer?
Hang out with my friends?
Well, you can do that, but you also need to get to a doctor and dentist for a checkup. Learn more at vdh.virginia.gov. A message from the Virginia Department of Health.
Sell to your customers anywhere with Shopify, the commerce platform designed for entrepreneurs. Online, on social, in person, and on the go. Get the tools you need to sell the way you want. Powered by Shopify.
He It's the JCPenney Mystery Sale and Gold Coupon Giveaway. You could win up to an extra 50% off or hit the $60 off jackpot deal. JCPenney, make it count. Giveaway in store 8/1 to 8/4 while they last. Exclusions apply. Must be 18 or older.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. I think most of us are back. I think. Let's see. Okay. So now we're ready for section 3. I'm going to start. Give me 1 second. And now we have Melissa Adams, who's going to be going over section 3. So, Melissa, take it away. I'm not sharing yet, right? Oops, no.
Not yet.
Sorry
Nope,
about
I'll
that.
wait for you.
All right, give me 1 second. I wasn't prepared. All right, now we're good. Nope. I don't know what's going on. Am I sharing now the right slides?
You
Perfect.
are. Looks good. Great. Okay, so now that we've discussed the types of grants and where to find funding opportunities, I wanted to take a little bit to discuss how to apply for a grant with ACF. Applying for a discretionary grant with ACF typically involves several steps. So the first is reviewing available grant opportunities, confirming eligibility requirements, registering on grants.gov, registering in SAM.gov, and then, of course, submitting your application. So we'll talk through some of these in the next slide. In the context of grants management, the terms pre-award, award, and post-award refer to specific stages in the life cycle of a grant. The first phase, the pre-award phase, includes a few things. So that includes the application preparation, proposal submission, and proposal review. The second phase is the award phase, and that includes the funding recommendation based on review of applications, negotiations, which may occur either in this phase or even in the pre-award phase, an award decision, and then the issuance of a notice of award. So that is the document that indicates that you've been issued an award. It will list out all of your budget, your terms and conditions of the award, things like that. Drawing down funds indicates acceptance of the award. Then the final phase is the post-award phase. So that includes things like grant implementation, monitoring and reporting, financial management, and then closeout of the grant. So each of these phases is critical to the successful management of a grant, ensuring that awarded funds are used effectively and in alignment with the intended purpose of the grant program. So I'll say that ongoing communication between the funding agency and grant recipients, so if you've received an award, is key throughout all stages of the grant workflow, just to make sure that any issues that arise are addressed. We can provide guidance and to ensure compliance with federal regulations and grant requirements. So registering with grants.gov is crucial for accessing federal grants. You'll want to make sure you plan ahead to avoid delays because the process can take up to 30 days. So here's a quick high-level overview of the process. First thing is you'll register with sam.gov. That you'll input your organization's basic details. The verification process can take several business days. And if you don't already have what's called a unique entity identifier or UEI, which is previously known as a DUNS number, you'll be assigned one through the sam.gov registration process, and you'll need that for your grants.gov account. So once you've done that, you'll go ahead and you'll create a grants.gov account. You'll go to grants.gov, set up the account using the UEI and sam.gov details. There, you'll complete your organization profile, which is just entering information about your organization, including key personnel, as well as designating authorized representatives. Those are the folks that are authorized to submit grant applications on your behalf. You'll monitor your registration status through like email. And I'll say, just to make sure once you've gone through this and completed all the hard work, keep your registration up to date and renew annually to make sure that you remain continuously eligible. Renewals must be completed at least 30 days before expiration. So now we're just going to take a quick look at sam.gov. This is a really good page to bookmark. It's where, as I mentioned before, it's where you'll register and obtain your UEI. You don't already have one. And again, this is where you want to make sure that you renew annually, at least 30 days before expiration to make sure that you remain eligible for grants. The other slide will show you kind of a quick screenshot of grants.gov. Again, be sure to bookmark that page. And remember, plan ahead because the full registration process through sam.gov and grants.gov can take up to 30 days. So Jessica's going to put a handy checklist in the chat that helps really walk you through the registration process because there's multiple steps. I know for me, it's nice to have a checklist to make sure I've covered everything. So we wanted to make sure you had that as well. When you're looking at the notice of funding opportunity, each document covers 9 major topic areas, and they're listed here on the slide. I'm not going to go over all of them, but for instance, the eligibility section, that will provide important information to determine whether you're considered an eligible entity for the funding opportunity. So some NOFOs may be limited to certain types of entities, whether it be a public agency, a nonprofit, or another entity type. You'll also want to pay special attention to the published evaluation criteria under application review, as that's how your application will be evaluated and scored by the peer reviewers. So you want to make sure as you're writing your project narrative that you're addressing every area that's listed in that evaluation criteria. Lastly, when developing your budget, you'll want to review the funding information, whatever limitations there might be, and what the post-award requirements are for reporting, allowable costs, things like that. So I'm going to just show you a quick screenshot. This is from grants.gov. And a note, and I think Bridget mentioned this earlier, is when you go in and you're searching grants.gov looking for a funding opportunity, some might be listed as forecasted. And what that is it's a preview of funding opportunities. It typically provides a general description of the project, a listing of eligible entities, and an estimated post dates, which is good for planning purposes and looking forward to what you might want to apply for. So once you've found a notice of funding opportunity that interests you, you will go ahead and click on the hyperlink under opportunity number to view the announcement. So that opportunity number actually provides info on the awarding agency. So in our case, HHS ACF. The year, so say 2024, the program office acronym, and the picture on this slide happens to be OCS, which is the Office of Community Services, and then the specific announcement number. Once you click on the hyperlink, it will take you to a second screen, which is titled View Grant Opportunity, as shown on this slide. I want you to take note of the 4 blue text boxes below this. Basically, the first tab, or synopsis, provides a summary of the NOFO with key information such as project period and budget period, eligible entities, and the award ceiling, which is the maximum amount that you may request, or floor, which is the minimum you can request. The next box, called version history, is where you will find any updates to the NOFO or changes. So sometimes things change. You would find that information here. The third box, titled Related Documents, allows you to download the full announcement, any revisions to the announcement, and also any other supporting documents provided by the awarding agency. Lastly, package is where you'll find the application package. Here you can preview the application, including the required forms. And when ready, it's also where, most importantly, where you will submit your application and required forms and attachments. So grants.gov does offer training on the application process, which may be useful, as well as a help desk. And they are ready to answer the technical questions related to applying on grants.gov or accessing specific documents. So I know that was a lot of info and you may have questions. So please, reminder to go ahead, put them in the chat, and we can address them as we move forward. So speaking of forms, quick review of key forms most frequently required by applicants. So these include the SF 424 series, which consists of 3 forms, including a detailed budget listing and assurances to comply with specified federal requirements. The other key form is what's called the SFPPSL, which is the project and performance site location. So a really long name that basically means where are your grant funded activities occurring? And then the last one is the certification regarding lobbying, that is where you'll confirm that no federal funds are used for lobbying activities. Detailed instructions for completing each form are available on grants.gov, and then additional forms may be required as listed in the NOFO. So sometimes it's helpful to have an example of a successful grant application. And you can actually request copies of these successful grant applications from ACF through what's called the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. And so to do that, you'll want to do a few things. Direct your request to the ACF FOIA officer within the Department of Health and Human Services. You'll clearly want to state that you want copies of successful grant applications and be specific on what you're requesting. And remember, it can take up to 20 business days for a response. So just be thoughtful of that and planning ahead. There's definitely a lot more details to the request process. The ACF website has a FOIA page, and we'll also include a link to that in the Grants 101 resources that you will have access to after this presentation. So a few tips when writing your application. First, I would say definitely, obviously, pay attention to the program description, the application instructions, and the application review criteria. You know, really kind of understanding those three components of the NOFO will be critical in writing a strong application. I know it doesn't need to be said, but follow the application instructions because it includes things like formatting requirements, page limits, and any specific content that must be included in the application narrative. When you're developing your project proposal, you'll want to make sure it's very detailed and it aligns with the goals and priorities outlined in the NOFO. You'll want to clearly articulate the need for the project, the objectives, methodology of how you might evaluate your progress, and your budget. So consider how your project addresses ACF's mission and strategic priorities. Then budget development. So you'll want to obviously, develop a comprehensive budget that accurately reflects the costs associated with your project. And I say, and be realistic with it too. So, really thinking about those costs and what can be expected and what might be unexpected. Follow any budget guidelines provided in the NOFO and ensure that your budget narrative explains the rationale behind each budget line item. And finally, submit your application. Complete all required forms and attach all the necessary supporting documents as outlined in the NOFO. And then submit your application through grants.gov before the specified deadline. I'll tell you, as someone who's written plenty of grant applications and federal applications before, you can run tight up to those deadlines, and you don't want to be there at 11 p.m. and it's due at midnight and have something go wrong and be late submitting, because late submissions are generally not accepted. So Augusto, would you mind bringing up the mural activity?
Absolutely, it's coming up. Okay, so now we have it's this ACF. This is a very ACF specific. So give me 1 second. Share that. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So we are now going to go into this final mural activity for today. So if you are able to go to mural, and let's do this activity called Creating a Grants Culture. How do you create a grants culture within your organization? Add your ideas here. And now we added these best practices and tips for application success, just kind of as a, as an aid, but these are a couple of examples we came up with. So you can follow that, or you can add your own idea. So how can you create a grants culture within your organization? Just put your ideas in this post-it. We're gonna spend a couple minutes here, and then we're gonna get back onto the presentation. So.
for the day by.
30 more seconds and we'll get to the presentation. So thank you for everyone who's participating.
Prices every day is getting higher. Won't let my money burn in the campfire. Got 3 hungry babies and a rent to be paid.
Okay, so welcome back. We're gonna continue with section. It's now time for Q&A. So I think the questions have been coming in for Melissa. But if anybody wants to ask a question, you can come off mute, or you can continue to this excellent conversation in the chat. So I'll just give an opportunity for anyone to come off mute and ask a question directly to Melissa, or just continue in the chat. So we'll do that just for a couple more minutes.
I'll jump in and offer one quick thing, Augusto, that I'll put in the chat. So there's a website called Tags. And it's basically a website where folks can search for grants that have been awarded, and you can search by different search terms, or if you know a specific agency, state. So you could put in, what awards were issued in Hawaii during FY 2024. It's called Tags, TAGGS. So it's TAGGS.hhs.gov, and I'll put it in the chat. But it's helpful to see what's been funded, but also when you're requesting a successful grant application through the FOIA process, you could actually say, I am looking for this specific grant application this year, and provide that level of detailed information so that you know exactly what you're requesting.
Wonderful. So remember, if you think of your question, you can put it in the chat and ask later. We have we'll have, I think, a couple more opportunities, but now we're gonna go into section 4. So Sherry, take it away.
Aloha. My name is Sherry. I'm a grants management specialist, and I'm located in Seattle, Washington. And I have been working with ACF grants since 2004. I'll let you do that math. It's pretty easy since we're in 2024. So at this point, you might be wondering, I applied for a grant, now what? So I am going to talk to you about how award decisions are made and the post-award phase of managing an ACF grant. So award decisions are made by the program office that posts the notice of funding opportunity. So you've heard a lot about the NOFO and all the information contained in it. And final decisions are based on a variety of programmatic and financial factors, and it depends on what kind of grant it is. So one of the first steps that you've heard people talk about with a competitive grant is that peer review. So you're going to be kind of graded on how well you responded to the criteria in the NOFO. And then secondly, we might consider, if you have received previous federal awards, we might consider your previous performance on those prior awards. That tends to happen a lot more when you have a multi-year project. So maybe in the competitive process, we look at your application and you're ranked and scored on that. And then for subsequent funding periods, you might have the program and fiscal components a little bit more heavily. So just like your organizations are split between financial and project or operations people, we have teams that are made up of fiscal and program people that reviewed the applications and any amendments that you might need throughout that funding period. So after an award is issued, we both have our individual roles, the awarding agency and the award recipient. We each have a role to fulfill to ensure that the project is completed and is in compliance with federal regulations. So it's the awarding agency's responsibility to outline the expectations and provide guidance, and it's the award recipient's responsibility to understand the expectations and ask questions. So ACF will issue funding awards, provide technical assistance, review reports, monitor compliance, and approve necessary amendments. And the award recipient needs to implement the project as specified in the application, manage funds responsibly, submit required reports, and comply with federal laws, regulations, policies, and the terms and conditions of the grant award. So again, as we've said before, communication is key. We really, really want you to talk to us, ask questions, tell us what you need. And we all are a team. We all want these projects to be successful. So on the next slide, we're going to look at the notice of award. So this is the primary way that ACF communicates the expectations around the award to the recipient. It's an official, legally binding document that contains the key information about the project. And it's awarded through our database, Grant Solutions. So you will need to have access to Grant Solutions to be able to access the notice of award and to apply for funding. If you have multiple years of funding, you may have to apply in Grant Solutions. The notice of award serves as the official communication to the recipient that their application has been approved and that the grant has been activated. So on the next slide, we're going to see some important pieces of the award. So the award identifies the legal parties to the agreement, including the recipient and awarding agency's information and primary contacts. And it also includes budget period and project period. So you know the period of time which you're being funded and when you will receive funds. The approved budget, the amount of funding that you're going to receive. And then one of the most important pieces is the terms and conditions and other requirements that may be related to the grant award. So the terms and conditions can include implementing regulations for the program, uniform administrative requirements, and instructions for your specific award. So we just want to make sure that all of the expectations are very clear and that you know exactly what we're expecting of you. So it's very important, again, on your part to understand the terms and conditions of the award, because we want to make sure that the funds are being spent on allowable costs and that the funded activities align with ACF's mission and objectives. Again, going back to that NOFO, now you've got the award, we need to make sure that you're implementing what we talked about, what we agreed on. So I'm going to stop there just for a minute and see if anyone has any questions about the award phase or the notice of award. Go ahead and pop those in the chat. I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to go ahead to the next section, which is payment and reporting and closeout. So payment management system is the system that the Department of Health and Human Services uses to manage payments to grant recipients. So the payment management system records the funding authorizations, that's the notice of grant award, and withdrawals that the recipients make from the payment management system. So when you as a recipient submit a payment request in the payment management system, the funds are then electronically transferred directly to your designated bank account. So you do have to set up an account with PMS. And PMS is also where we collect financial information from you about the expenditure of the federal funds. So we also use PMS for you to submit those SF425 federal financial reports. So the federal financial report is where you report the expenditure of federal funds, unliquidated obligations, and unobligated balances. And then for certain grants, you may be required to add additional information in the remarks, or if you have a cost matching requirement for the grant, that's also reported on this form. And it is submitted in the payment management system on an annual, semi-annual, or quarterly basis, depending on the award terms and conditions. So again, it's really important to read those awards and the terms and conditions so that you know what reporting is expected. And then depending on the amount of funds that you expend during a fiscal year, you may also be required to submit an audit in accordance with the Single Audit Act and OMB Uniform Guidance. And then most programs have some kind of program reporting. The performance progress report is one of the primary ones that we see. And if the PPR, as we call it, again, we love our acronyms, if it is required, you should see the frequency and the method of submission in your terms and conditions. And again, if you don't see that or if you have any questions about reporting, please reach out to your assigned program or fiscal specialist and ask them. We're here to help. So in addition to these two main types of reporting, some programs also have special reporting. So for example, if you receive a grant that has authority to use grant funds for purchasing, constructing, or renovating facilities, then you might be required to submit the SF 429 real property reports. There are other property reports related to equipment, and other grant programs sometimes require regular submission of data reports on key performance indicators, or they might require surveys or reports to Congress on a regular basis. Again, you want to always read your terms and conditions because you need to make sure that you're submitting the reports in the designated system. Otherwise, they won't be considered as officially received. And it can vary from grant to grant. So you just really need to pay attention to each individual award and what's being required in that award because they're not always the same. So you want to make sure that your reports are accurate and complete and in the right system and submitted on time, because we don't want to see any penalties or withholding of funds or any other remedies for non-compliance. So it's really important to get those reports in. And again, if you have any questions or if you need more time, reach out to us. And the other thing to remember about the records or the reports is just that you should maintain all of the records related to your grant for at least 3 years. And for some things, the records retention is longer. So again, pay attention to the terms and conditions to make sure that you know what you're required to maintain. And just so you know, reporting helps us to make decisions about future funding opportunities and priorities and what impact these grant programs have. So it's important for us to get the reports to make those decisions. And then the final step in the process is closeout. So this is when ACF will determine whether or not you've completed all of the activities and they've been documented in the reports. And you may receive a pre-closeout letter that tells you where and when to submit the final reports. And then there's an award at the end that will include instructions about disposition of property if you were able to purchase any equipment or property, and any potential adjustments that might happen after the closeout. But essentially, the closeout process just verifies that funds were used effectively to achieve program goals and that all of the grant obligations have been fulfilled. That's the end of my section. Are there any questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat or unmute and ask away. Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to turn it back. I think Melissa's back.
Yes, thank you. Let's go into the final section, section 5. Melissa, if you're around, you can take it from here.
Good. Okay, so now that we've gone over Grants 101, you might be thinking, wow, that was a lot of information packed into a really short amount of time. Or asking yourself, who are the key contacts for grants at ACF again? And where do I find additional resources for applying for grants? First, I will tell you there are 2 types of NOPOs out there. There's a simplified version and a standard version. They're piloting a simplified version, which is why there's 2. So no matter which one, you can find contact info in the full NOPO. And regardless of the type, the table of contents will indicate where to locate contact info for both program and grants office folks. It will state the program office and grants office contact name, email, telephone, and address. Sometimes you might see a program office use a contractor's email. Those go directly to the program office, grants office contacts and are for tracking purposes only. So before we wrap up, I'd like to provide a brief demo of the ACF Grants website. So Augusto, I think, did you just stop sharing?
Yes, so now you wanna share your
Great.
screen?
Great. Let me find the right one. Here we go. Okay. So everyone should be able to see sorry about that, guys. Let me do it one more time. Okay. So this is the ACF Grants website, and I'll say that first, I'll point out that at the top right of every ACF web page is this page thing called here ACF offices. And if you click on any one of these, you'll go directly to the program office page, which is really helpful because those individual program pages often provide links to their direct NOFOs, maybe some technical assistance opportunities or webinars to help potential applicants kind of understand the grant requirement and proposal development process. This page specifically, though, is for grants. It's where we have all of our information on a couple key areas. So the first being the grant application process, which I'll go to kind of deeper in a second. Then the grant management process for folks who have an award and or have questions about reporting or what are my grant requirements. We have a section specific to tribal funding. And then down below, we have some quick links, which is helpful for application resources. Same thing for grants management, and then general resources. And there's a frequently asked questions section, which I will show you again in a second. But if I click on the grant application process, there's some information in different key areas. So funding opportunities, so how to register. So a lot of what we went over today. Where do I find those funding opportunities? The application process has some good info that we haven't discussed yet. So kind of tips on how to decide whether you should apply, tips for writing a strong application, preparing a budget, which I'll click on to show you. This is handy. It's something newer on our site that really by different cost categories tells you, what's the description of info we're looking for when you're writing your budget, and specifically the justification, what level of information we might be looking for when you write that budget narrative. The other thing that's helpful on this page is a crosswalk. And what this is it takes you between both the traditional NOFO and the simplified NOFO that I mentioned earlier, just where to find different pieces of the NOFO depending on which type you're looking at. There's also information on the review process, which includes things like, what does the merit review process look like? Who are peer reviewers? What should I expect after I submit my application? So good info there. And then finally, I'll look at the frequently asked questions. There's a few different sections here. 2 are related specifically to applications. So the application process and the review process. Then we've added a 4th section titled Grants 101 Training Resources. And this is on the handout that you'll receive as part of this presentation today. So if I click on that and go there, there's a lot of different questions. We've put in some of the basic questions that we think might be, it might be asked. So, where can I get assistance for grants.gov issues? We'll also look at some of the questions that have come in today. And if there's some broad questions that we think we could add info to here, we'll do that. We're trying to keep it a living document so it's as useful for you as possible. I think that's all I wanted to share briefly on the page. I know we're running short on time. So wanted to leave a couple minutes for a few last minute questions or things that we needed to wrap up.
Yes, if anybody has any questions, please come off mute, or you can just put them in the chat, continue to put them in the chat. I see a very healthy discussion going on there. Finally, I want to share one last thing with you, if you don't mind taking just a minute to complete. Remember that we took a quick survey at the beginning of this, beginning of the presentation. I'm gonna put it, because we're short on time. I'm gonna put it in the chat as well. Jessica's gonna put it in the chat, but I'm also gonna put it on the screen. So if you have a mobile device, you can easily just snap it and take a quick survey. That one has a few more questions because it also goes into kind of how we did. So beyond just your understanding of grants, and but also about this, just ask you a couple questions about the presentation itself. So feel free to, take it now, or you can take it after the presentation. In addition, we are gonna be sharing some resources that we mentioned before. So everything that we have shared with you, as Melissa mentioned, is on our website. So we're gonna send you like a quick, almost like a quick reference guide, followed by some links to our resources on our website, which are very have been recently updated. So we hope that you find them very useful, and I help you in your journey. So before we wrap up today, I want to give it back to Lindsay, who has some special announcements before we end the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. These slides, the copy of the recording, all of that, we'll let you know when that's ready, the recording anyway, and then all of it will also be posted on our websites, as well as any additional information that ACF is providing. So that way you can refer back to it, and it is open. You're going to be able to share that with whoever you want as well. The registration is still open as well. If you would like to attend some of our other workshops, we have the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Agency, as well as HRSA, and then we're going to have some in-person ones. If you've signed up for an in-person one, we know the times are TBD. Hopefully UHMC confirms those rooms, etc., with us this week, in which case we'll be sending that out to you all. I know some people signed up for both just because you weren't sure what time it was, which is totally okay, but we're going to ask that you only sign up for one, because you only need to sign up for one. It's not a two-part, but we'll send those details out as well. And then for the in-person one, we do ask that you have a project identified when you come to the workshop. If you don't have a project identified, it's going to make it more difficult to be able to do that one. So we really do ask that you take some time to identify a project in preparation for that. But otherwise, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Unless our partners at ACF have anything else to say, I think we'll wrap.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's been an honor to present to you. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and yeah, good luck, and keep in touch. Let us know about your experience with ACF, and we are happy to assist. We have a lot of experts here in the room, and we're all going to make sure that you get the funds that you need to support your project. So have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much. That was really good. Very helpful and well run.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You guys have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.